Jake Paulers, imagine being trampled to death. Being trampled to death by a bunch of 11-year-olds screaming, "Dab on them haters." r/AskReddit. What's a fan base that scares the hell out of you? The fans in Webtoons comment section. I just read the new chapters on my Webtoons and bounce. Went there once, never again. Ducking yes, I thought I was the only one scrolling past the cringe. Webtoons are great. Comic creators are wizards. Comment section is just a different ducking realm altogether. I thought it wasn't possible, but the comment section on Webtoon is often more cringy than a typical YouTube comment section. Might be dating myself here, but back in the day those Homestuck fans used to scare me quite a bit. Especially the ones that would come up and glomp you at cons without warning. Former Homestuck fans, was everyone like this, or was it just some bad apples? I must know. Edit. For the folks who don't know, glomping is when someone runs up as fast as they can and hugs you by surprise. It's sort of like a tackle in a way, and it is usually done without asking first. It happened at a lot of anime and comic conventions in the 2000s and early 2010s, but I believe the act is banned now. Certain K-pop fandoms, but not all, some of them are pretty peaceful. I just feel bad for the idols they admire. It seems like the fans control their lives. SASAENGS. Sassines are basically super stalkers for K-pop idols. They get on the same first class flight with them, find out their hotel room number, steal their pee from their toilet. This has happened multiple times, and even worse things. Steal their, excuse me, what the hell? Actually, it goes much deeper than that. Some guy in the UK, named Ali London, actually paid over $100,000 to resemble Jimin, a member of the popular K-pop group BTS. Just think about that for a moment. A guy actually paid $1/1000,000 to look like another person. Something about that is just deeply psychologically disturbing to me. Too bad. He looks nothing like his idol LMAO. That was my thought too. I googled the name and thought maybe he should have paid more. A lot of these idols can't even date publicly or privately because of their fans. I remember when there was a paparazzi photo of a BTS member hugging a close friend of his. People automatically assumed that she was his girlfriend and started digging up her personal information. They were harassing her on Instagram and all that shit. It's kinda wild, because as much as Western boy bands have their fair share of problems, literally all of them date. And the girlfriends often end up having their own fans, which is wild in itself. Idol culture is huge in East Asia, but it's also very toxic for the reasons you mention. It basically comes down to fostering parasocial relationships on an extreme, and sometimes sexual, level. The level of ownership an idol group company has is basically the same level of ownership Disney has over their fictional characters. It's scary. Not sure if it's a fan base, but that weird baby monkey thing on YouTube where a bunch of random people comment harsh things in the comment section of baby monkey videos. It honestly scares me how normal some people can seem, but partake in activities such as these. I must be out of the loop. What on earth? There are videos of baby monkeys up on YouTube, right? A lot of them have people giving graphic descriptions of how they'll mutilate the baby monkeys and things like that. It's surreal as duck. Edit. I went through and looked at some of the videos again online, and I think YouTube has cracked down on them finally, but you can look it up online and read about it because it used to be a common thing. Just look up monkey hate comments or something like that and you can read all about it. On YouTube there's some sort of sick cult of animal cruelty that for some reason focuses on monkeys, particularly baby monkeys. You probably haven't heard of it because YouTube do a good deal of censoring bad videos that even gain the slightest bit of traction, but some googling of YouTube monkey torture will bring you to news articles. Those girls who are into school shooters, that's terrifying. They need serious therapy. Tumblr is a scary place. Did you know that when Nicholas Cruz was put in jail, he received hundreds of love letters in the mail? Some were even nude photographs from adults. I'm not sure if they let him read any of them though. That's just gross. How can people think that's okay? I mean, he is a killer. I really could never wrap my head around people like that, especially grown women. Someone I was friends with in college survived a school shooting. I met him about 8 to 9 months after it happened. I will never forget the way he'd go from happy-go-lucky to so depressed he could barely speak when things brought back memories of what happened. No human should have to experience something like that, and it made a scar on his soul that he has to spend time and energy healing from single every day. The Parkland shooting was absolutely horrific. Some students even had to hide under bodies of other students. Whenever I think of Nicholas Cruz receiving all that fan mail, I get ducking blood boiling infuriated. Those fans need to grow up and look at the toll these atrocities take on human life. The online pro wrestling community can be a minefield. Oh Jesus. Hearing how people talk about Miller Rose blows my mind. It really is true that pro wrestling world is like 50 years behind the rest of the world. I've been watching pro wrestling for nearly 30 years and it still baffles me how seriously people take it online. They get very emotional. Think about it this way. Take The Walking Dead or Games of Thrones. People got so into those shows that they would start arguments at the drop of a hat. Wrestling fans are like that, except their show is never ending, and story arcs many times don't have resolutions. It can be frustrating, so they get emotional and have ways they would do it better. Classic armchair quarterbacking. My husband has never watched wrestling. Tonight we watched Stubber with Dave Bautista and my husband says, "Have you ever heard of a wrestler named Booker T? I guess they hate each other." And before he could even finish what he was saying I reflexively yelled, "Can you dig it, sucker?" Poor man had no idea what I was talking about. I was never super into it, but I watched a fair amount in the early 2000s. Creepypasta. 12-year-old girls thinking about killers, as if they're you woo so cute. They're just misunderstood. They're not monsters. Bothers me as a horror writer. Kid, you're missing the whole ducking point here. They're meant to be monsters. If you ran up to a Slenderman and gave him a hug he wouldn't become a big softie and say, "Oh, nobody ever understood me." He'd stab you to death. Billie Eilish. I have gotten death threats because I said I didn't particularly care for her music. Look at her Instagram. It's so scary. They're just edgy teenagers. They won't actually kill you. Probably. The chances are low, but never zero. JoJo Siwa, all those kids. It's like an army of 8 to 11-year-olds, and the thought of that is terrifying to me. I don't think JoJo is that bad. I'm pretty uneducated about the fandom, but as far as I've seen, she seems to try and put out a positive role model for her fan base, and she keeps it age appropriate, which I appreciate. Sometimes the role models for 8 to 11 years old still end up putting out content that's too mature for them, and it's a tough balance, because it's hard to fault the person for wanting to change their image. An army of 8 to 11-year-olds is definitely loud and hyper, which can be headache inducing, but since they are generally not malicious I'm okay with them loving their idol. What are they going to do? Punch us in the shins? Adults have the clear advantage if an army of 8 to 11-year-olds decide to uprise. Anisian stands, if they exist. They do, but barely and hard to come by. Most of the fan base has left. Oh, you just made me puke in my mouth. Onion Boy should be locked up in prison for eternity. I genuinely don't understand how they ever existed in the first place. Emmylou fans, they defend her for being racist, and they try to ruin your life if you don't agree/have the same opinion as them. She does not deserve to be defended, and she even said so herself. I'm not a supporter of hers anyone, but I do think people need to leave her alone for a bit. She's obviously unstable in her last videos and I really hope nobody actually bullies her into doing something bad, especially with how open she's already been about her mental health. Oprah fans. She's given us terrible doctors that continually tout inaccurate information, but her followers would all kill their mothers if she told them it would be healing. Anime lovers, they scare the hell out of me, and I'm one of them. Hello, fellow weeb gang. Political figures/parties. Get involved in a primary race, US, and you'll see, despite being members of the same party, some of those candidates and their supporters will tear each other apart just in the name of winning. General elections are the same, except it's now between the two major factions of American politics. A big problem with American politics is the two-party system. It's a breeding ground for the increasing polarization surrounding elections. It's also the reason why both parties and certain political figures have a cult-like following. This problem is definitely apparent during election season.